Hi guys, welcome back to Locally Raised. This one wouldn't keep quiet, so she's gonna be part of our little intro today. So I am sitting here having just wrapped up making our year's supply of apple butter. This is sitting on these boards because some of it's actually still hot, straight out of the canner. Half of this is for my family and half is for my parents. They helped make this. So I'm eager to share this process with you. If you want to go from apples to apple butter, this video will show you the whole process. She's restless. But that process is long because it requires making applesauce first. If you want to make apple butter and you don't want to go through all that process, you can also just buy applesauce from the store. Unsweetened applesauce is best, but yeah, if you can buy a large quantity of applesauce from the store, you can also turn it into apple butter. And I have marked a chapter in this video, so you could just skip right ahead to that step of making apple butter and go from there. All right, let me take you back to yesterday and show you how we started making this. My parents bought 2 bags of apples from a local grocery store. This time of year, my area sells bulk apples, and they're usually from New York. One of the bags was a Golden Delicious, and the other bag was Cortland. Cortland is our favorite type of apple for applesauce and apple butter. These were just $10 a bag. So $20 for a bushel of local apples. We're happy with that. After the apples are washed, we use a tomato corer to take the top stem and the bottom end off of each apple. If you joined us for our applesauce day a couple weeks ago, this is the exact same process because we're starting with applesauce. Next, the apples are quartered. Cutting them up just helps them break down a little faster as they're cooked. My son is so pleased with his new little kid-friendly knife, so even he was able to get involved in this step of the process. Once the apples were quartered, they were ready to start cooking down. Normally we do this outside on a big burner, but it is a miserable day out, so we thought we'd try it on the stove. I'm just adding a little apple juice to the bottom of each pot to keep the apples from burning and sticking. I'd say I added maybe 2/3 of a cup to a cup to each pot. It wasn't an exact science. We soon discovered, though, that it was just a little bit awkward to stir pots that are this full, and it was harder to stir things up on the stove than it was with our outdoor setup. So my dad stepped up and volunteered to man the pot if we would move everything into a giant pot outside. And that worked much better for us. He just stepped outside every few minutes to give it a stir and then went back inside. While the apples were cooking down, I took this time to assemble my food mill. This is new for me. It's only my second time using it, so I needed to look at the manual a bit and figure things out. But once I got it, I realized it's not very hard. I really like this food mill. I'll put a link for it down below if you're interested. Finally, after about 40 minutes on the heat, the apples were ready to come off and become applesauce. You'll know your apples are done cooking when they resemble a chunky sort of stew-like texture.
You going in first?
Sure. John wants to tell me the difference now with the electricity, the heating, and the heat. Here comes the...
Just do it.
No, this is a...
In the end, our bushel of apples became about 16 quarts of applesauce. To turn the applesauce into apple butter, we added just 2 seasonings. The first is cinnamon. I added a teaspoon of cinnamon for every quart of applesauce. I like this kind of recipe because it easily adapts to whatever amount you happen to be starting with. The second seasoning is cloves. I added a 1/4 teaspoon of cloves for every quart of applesauce. Next, I decided to hit the applesauce with my immersion blender. This step is 100% optional. I just decided I wanted it to be a bit smoother. Finally, I transitioned to slow cookers for the cook down. This needs to cook low and slow to become thicker. I recommend leaving the lid partially off or completely off to allow it to condense down. This has now been cooking down for 8.5 hours. It probably wouldn't have taken me quite this long if I'd left the lid off sooner, but it's just gotten to the consistency I want. So let me show you what that looks like. You can see how this kind of holds its shape. As I run my spoon through it, I can mound it up and it holds that shape a bit. That's one indication that it's reached a good thickness. Another indication is just that if you run a finger through it, it kind of holds the tunnel and doesn't all fall back together. So again, another indication that it's getting thick enough. The only problem is it's now 9 o'clock at night. I am not in a stage of life where I want to start a canning project at 9 p.m. So I'm gonna put these on keep warm and I'm gonna can them first thing in the morning. I don't wanna stick them in the fridge because then I'm gonna have to heat this up again to can it. And I don't wanna put it on low because it will simmer all night and I don't wanna thicken it and condense it more. So I think the keep warm setting will be just right and then we'll come back in the morning. All right, this has been on warm overnight. We're back and ready to can. So I've tried it and I really actually like the taste of it unsweetened, but I also would like to see what it's like sweetened with honey. I've never done that. So one of these pots, I'm gonna add some honey to. Honey's pretty powerful. I don't wanna overdo it. I'm gonna start with a 1/2 cup and taste and go from there. I'm just gonna give this a taste, see if that was enough sweetener. I actually can't tell much of a difference. I was too cautious, I think. I'll add about another 1/2 cup of honey. All right, I actually ended up adding that entire pint jar of honey because I realized that I'd started way too small. So let's give it a taste now. That's good. I wasn't sure if it would end up tasting like honey. Sometimes honey has a strong flavor that carries through, but it didn't. It really, the apple butter tastes like apple butter. That just took a little bit of edge off the tartness. I'm gonna start ladling this one into jars. These jars are filled to 1/4 inch of headspace. I'm using some 1/2 pint jars here as well as some 12-ounce jars. These are about the right size for us. I also do some pint jars simply because that's what I happen to have on hand. Now I'm wiping down the rims with a rag that's been dipped in a solution of vinegar and water, just getting the last little sticky bits of apple butter off the top. And then it's time for lids and bands. I'm using my 4 jars lids here. These have been really reliable for me for about the past half year that I've been using them, so I'm going to stick with them as long as they continue to perform like I've been wanting. Finally, these are lowered into my canner and they're processed for 15 minutes. I wish I could show you how these came out, but I actually didn't take them out myself. I was taking my kids to school, so my husband took care of the last step. Here they are, they all sealed, so he did good taking them out. I then processed 2 more batches. They're popping. So this is our year's supply of apple butter. I like having it with cottage cheese and yogurt for breakfast. I also like having it with brie on crackers for a snack. I've been wanting to try smothering it on pork chops. Let me know if you've given that a try. Thanks for joining me and my family for another collaboration of preserving food together. One of my goals for this upcoming year is to get together with people more often to preserve food together so that it doesn't just become isolating work. So I'm glad that I was able to do this with my parents. Best of luck to you if you're doing your own canning projects or maybe finding somebody to join up with you and do your own canning projects. I'll look forward to seeing you again next week. Bye.